barring a miracle turnaround, the Phoenix Suns are going to fall way short of at least expectations this season. They're 28-33, good enough for just 11th in the West, just ahead of the 12th seeded Blazers, despite having the highest payroll in the league. So it's bad. It's very bad in Phoenix. And because of this, NBA insiders like Windy and Shams, they're reporting that Phoenix is ready to make real changes this summer and will look to trade Kevin Durant in the offseason. The franchise already tried to trade him at the deadline. KD essentially blocked that trade to the Warriors. He had no interest in moving mid-season or rejoining his old team. But this begs the question, if everyone knows Durant is going to be dealt, where will he land? What will that deal look like? Who should take a risk or not? So let's talk it out here and start with you, Trey. I mean, the question is simple. Is there a favorite of yours, the best Kevin Durant sort of trade destination? Or if you even want to start, like, should any team, considering his age and obviously his costs and all that, want to be in the KD sweepstakes? You still think he's got something left to contribute to a team?
KD's obviously got something left. The guy's still a 30-point-per-game scorer. He's shooting an incredible percentage, specifically from the mid-range. He's shooting great from three as well. Doesn't get to the rim as often, and like you're saying, he is older. He's going to be 37 at the start of next season, and after this year, when the Suns miss the playoffs, Kevin Durant will have won 2 playoff series in the last 5 years. He will have won 0 playoff games in the last 2 seasons, including this one and the sweep last year at the hands of the Timberwolves, who everybody picked the Timberwolves, not me, but everybody else picked the Timberwolves. At this point, Kevin Durant to me is a finishing piece. He's not a foundational piece of your team. You would need him as like your number 2 scorer at the max, I do believe. And the question, there's a few questions that need to be answered first, like what's the cost going to be? Because that is a huge thing. The cost for the Suns has been too much. This is a huge part of the reason why they've been a disappointment this season. They were better before they traded for Kevin Durant. The Bradley Beal thing was the final nail in the coffin, but they traded away a lot of their depth. Then they involved Durant in some of these personnel decisions, which led to Nurkic replacing DeAndre Ayton and another rotation piece potentially, and Tamani Kamara going out as well. So they've seen a lot of brain drain in Phoenix and haven't had a way to really bring it back. So what's going to cost to get KD? Because he even said to Draymond, he's like, yeah, I just didn't want to move to a team that's going to have to pay to get me because then there's nothing left. Yeah. So that's tough. The Suns, we got to figure out what they want. Do they want to like retool around Devin Booker?
Who they say they are not trading. I mean, they are coming out and saying that.
This guy is having the most anonymous season.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Devin Booker hardly at all. We've talked about Durant and Beal way more. Or do they actually want a full-on rebuild? Doesn't seem likely. Matt Ishbia doesn't seem like that's something he would want to do. And then I think the playoffs are going to answer a lot of questions. Like if Houston falls short, they maybe are interested in Kevin Durant. But in general, I think young teams should just keep brewing on what they're doing. OKC, I would say, is a massive no on trading for Kevin Durant and bringing him back.
Even if they fall up shockingly short in the playoffs? Even if you're not considering trading.
If they get swept in the first round, maybe it's different.
Okay. But outside of that, you're not trading a Hartenstein and a Caruso or a Dort and whatever draft capital it would take for a KD.
I wouldn't.
Interesting. Tass, well, let's start with that. You agree with that sort of like OKC? If it was a disaster in the playoffs and they flamed out very early because they expect to obviously compete for a championship, so I assume conference finals or bust, probably finals or bust, would they at least consider a KD trade, or should they?
No, I don't think it's for them. I think they should continue with their incredibly young core and just go forward with it, because if you were trading for somebody who's definitely got a couple, 2 to 3, maybe 4 good years left.
Yeah.
It doesn't bode well. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work with their timeline. Period.
What team then do you see as a possibility to make a realistic move for Kevin Durant? And maybe it does come down to what Trey's saying. Like, which of these teams flame out in the playoffs? Like, is it the Rockets? Maybe it's the Timberwolves. Like, you do get teams that panic, so to speak, because it doesn't go well and they want to switch it up. But do you have a trade destination in mind?
I think the Timberwolves could see a situation where they just say, we need something different. We need a guy who is sort of the co-leader, definitely could be the number 2 scorer, but we see what's happening in Phoenix. You need somebody to be the leader, and Anthony Edwards would still be that guy. I think the package coming back the other way would be the problem in that situation. I think they would be happy to get off Rudy Gobert, to be the primary part of it, along with picks. And the Phoenix Suns could say, well, okay, well, Devin and Rudy can maybe work it out together. But I think we've seen it's been a short amount of time in Minnesota. But you can sort of look back to his Utah days with Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. They had one very good run, a conference finals. And this Minnesota team, yes, it was just the second round last year, where they were able to beat Denver and getting to a conference finals themselves. But it sort of feels that way, where Rudy is just not clicking the way he used to. But I don't know if Phoenix would actually do something. It doesn't seem like a good enough package for Phoenix at this point.
I think it's more likely they would trade Julius Randle than Rudy Gobert. Gobert seems like a big piece of what they're still trying to do, even if he's taken a little bit of a step back. But I don't mind Minnesota as well. He would be a clear upgrade over Jaden McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels.
Den.
This is the only one I get messed up on.
Jaden, yeah.
I always remember it with
every single time. I got to remember.
It's defense.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
D for defense, because he's
every
such a
other
good
player
defender.
in the NBA is named Jalen.
Yeah, right.
And this is the one situation where Jaden is better than Jalen.
Yeah, usually, yes.
Jalen.
That is confusing. He's the exception that proves the rule. But I think Minnesota is like the perfect kind of spot for him, where they're still a younger team because Anthony Edwards is young. You know, DiVincenzo is on the younger side. Naz Reid, I don't exactly know how he would fit into the plans here, but Gobert's a little bit older. Like, they're kind of caught in between timelines, so I can see Durant fitting there. I think Dallas makes a lot of sense. They would just become the Suns all over. They're the old team with nothing in the future, so we might as well just try and win with these old guys now. I wonder if the Kyrie Irving injury throws a wrench into those kind of plans. Also, the last Kyrie-KD partnership didn't end perfectly as well. And then Miami, I think, is a team that should be in the mix as well. They're always trading for superstars. As for young teams, Houston is a little bit interesting because I think they're going to need a real offensive superstar at some point. And then Detroit, I think, could maybe get in the mix.
Yeah.
Though, they're so early that I don't think they should do it either.
Right. And yeah, and like what's coming back in theory in a hypothetical KD to Detroit trade? It's like
mostly
Tobias
picks,
Harris,
probably.
Yeah, picks. Maybe one of their young guys, like a Ron Holland. Like, you're not giving up Asar Thompson. Like, he should be untouchable,
No.
I think, for Detroit. Maybe Ivy, obviously out right now. Yeah, the Heat's interesting, Tass. You know, like Trey said, that's what Pat Riley does. He chases superstars, and they've struck out on a couple. But could they entice Phoenix with a Wiggins, I guess a Terry Rozier sort of deal to make the money work? I don't know if a young guy has to be included, be it a Jaquez or a Ware. I think they would have 2 picks after the draft. Maybe that's enough to get it done. Do you see something there? That would have KD going to the East, too? I mean, get out of the West. Help your chances to maybe go far. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think there's enough there for Matt Ishbia when it comes to the star level. I mean, Matt Ishbia sold everything. He told James Jones, you go make this deal for Kevin Durant. I don't care what you say. And for the return to be Wiggins as the prime guy, I don't think that's enough. Right. Now, I buy the Minnesota deal a little bit more. I don't know if it's Julius Randle to equate to enough of a star. I think the Rudy Gobert thing might work for Ishbia just because you now have a great defensive player. Now, it's questionable as to how they are playing right now, but they're still, I think they're 6th defense-wise. I think you can sort of sell that a little bit more. The Suns suddenly have a good defensive player, and that's something I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves would have to take a risk on Naz Reid being your starting center, right, which has boded well. I don't know what they do with Julius Randle coming up to this offseason. He's a free agent. It's a very, very interesting scenario for them with bringing him back or not. Hopefully they can all get healthy right now because he is out, and maybe they can see what they have going forward. But I like to see the sharing of Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant as the guys there. Yeah, so Anthony Edwards doesn't have to answer all the questions, doesn't have to be the face of the league kind of thing. It can be on Kevin Durant. But it is an odd scenario, as Trey said, about where they are just age-wise. So the Rockets thing, I don't think it makes sense because of age. OKC doesn't make sense.
Wait. Why not the Rockets, though? The Rockets maybe did a move last offseason to set them up for the Kevin Durant sweepstakes because they had that trade with the Nets where they basically gave the Nets their draft capital back, which is more immediate, and took a bunch of the Suns' future draft capital. And I think even Woj when he was still working for ESPN, reported at the time, oh yeah, they want Durant or Booker. Like, that's what their belief is here, and they think they can get Phoenix to sort of bite by returning all their draft picks. And that makes some sense, right? It's like, okay, you are really spinning your wheels. You guys have a crazy luxury tax. You're not even in the playoffs, for crying out loud, despite having the largest payroll in the league. You don't have any of your future draft capital. We'll give it all back to you. And, Van Vliet's contract and one of our young guys, be it a Tari Eason or a Cam Whitmore or something. We got a lot of them. We'll give you that back and all your picks. And we'll take KD and fold him into our team.
Does this mean then that the Suns would be trading Devin Booker as well? Because what's the point of getting your picks back if you're not going to be bad?
Well, to make maybe more moves. The other part of this, they don't like draft picks.
That's
they
a
don't
great point.
drafting.
Yeah.
So maybe they're like, nah, we don't want them. That's why we got rid of them. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Then again, that could be all smoke. They are really clearly saying, we're trading Kevin Durant. Like, this is like a done deal.
He's gone, funny. Man. Yeah. He's saying, I would have gotten traded if I didn't have to sell my house.
Yeah.
No wonder their team stinks.
But they are, right. That sort of blew up in their face, no doubt.
Well, that and benching Beal. Trying to get him to waive his no trade clause.
Right.
Nobody wants to leave Phoenix.
Why couldn't he just sell his house and be traded?
It's hard, man. It takes time. Gotta hire a realtor?
You think he's in there?
Rates?
He's in there showing potential buyers.
He's all
Do you like this bathroom? Do you like this bathroom here? This is my favorite bathroom of the house. Please buy it. Kevin Durant definitely could have been traded to Golden State. I think even though he went on Draymond's podcast and said it had nothing to do with our history and how it ended, I think there's something there. And just going back to a place where he wasn't anointed as the guy and he didn't get the limelight that he thought he was going to get. The whole Houston thing, it is going to be 2 years later on Kevin Durant's timeline if they were to get him for next year's playoffs. He would be old in comparison to their other guys. Now, it's an interesting scenario there. They definitely need a number one scorer. We see it every fourth quarter. We see it. There's no doubt. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They have a team option for Fred VanVleet coming next year. Right. The reason for that, the way they signed that, was a very interesting deal by Raphael Stone, was so that they could just let other guys go and let other guys sort of be their leaders, and Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün. So that's a huge question, what they do with that. He's not even going to be tradable if they just simply let him go. But they could just pick him up and lump him together for a star. They definitely need a star. That is totally true.
And then a lot of people are bringing up the Dallas Mavericks. Why not the Mavericks? Nico Harrison made it clear that the Dallas championship window, it's only 2 to 3 years. So, okay, Durant would sort of fit that concept. I just don't know how they get there. And this is like obviously before the Kyrie injury last night, which we're still waiting to see how severe.
We got news.
Oh, how bad is it?
Season-ending torn ACL. Per all sources.
Can't say I'm shocked by that news with the guy being carried off the floor and tears in his eyes when he's shooting the free throws.
I actually think Dallas makes a ton of sense. If I'm being honest, they've got 2 first-round picks and 4 swaps that they're able to trade come summertime, and Phoenix would actually be able to get back some helpful players. Who knows who they would actually throw in, but PJ Washington, helpful player. Maybe Lively goes back. Max Christie. These are all guys that could be in your rotation and actually have you being a decent team. The payoff would be farther down the road with these Mavericks picks. Kevin Durant could carry the team until Kyrie Irving comes back healthy. That makes a ton of sense from both sides to me.
I get that. I just it's difficult with the contracts. I mean, maybe this is a third or fourth team is folded into this. The Mavs have 2 guys that make over $40 million in AD and Kyrie, and then it's a steep drop off to guys that make 16, 15, 14 million, and then even less in Lively's case. So it's you got to put us so many guys together to get to a Kevin Durant sort of contract. That's the difficulty of that. But yeah. I mean, now with the Kyrie injury, wow. Damn. Can the Suns get that 10th seed, baby? Let's go.
What a nightmare for Dallas Mavericks fans this season.
Oh,
even if you could try and squint and think about your team with Kyrie and Anthony Davis this postseason, you can't anymore. No. Just close those eyes. It is a clear nightmare for this team. Horrible, horrible stuff. And I feel bad for Kyrie in that this was the team he was going to try and lead and get it right as a leader for the first time. It's a horrible scenario in a bunch of those ways. I mean, he got hurt in Brooklyn when Giannis Antetokounmpo got under him in that postseason before the Bucks went and won that title. Things could have been very different if Kevin Durant had Kyrie beside him, and if Kevin Durant had smaller shoes in that Game 7, and the Boston thing, and the Cavs, and they win a title, obviously, but he wanted to get out of there. It's a bad scene.
And it was like, to some extent, it's like, that's a fluke injury. I get it. The guy's driving in through the lane and bumping knees and the leg buckles, and now it's out for the season. But like, they also put a lot on his shoulders when they traded Luka Doncic, and he was playing heavy minutes for a guy getting up there in age, especially the way he plays, being a smaller guy. Like, I'm not saying it's like, oh, you should have seen this coming, but like, that's how, unfortunately, these injuries can occur, right? It's like, you're putting this guy through the ringer here. He's playing 40 plus minutes a game, a lot of these, and having to do a lot of the heavy lifting with the no AD portion as well, only playing like a half a game for the Dallas Mavericks. So really, really bad stuff. And now the Dallas Mavericks fans have to even pay more for season tickets, which I'm sure will come up on Friday's Worst of the Week.
Yeah, I think isn't AD, I think all their big guys are supposed to be reevaluated like today.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to get information on all these guys today. So I wonder if the Kyrie injury has an effect on Anthony Davis coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why? To make the play-in is why. And, he was trying to re-energize the city, he said, before he went down with his injury. Yeah. So, I don't know. Just bad stuff. Another team I would say, you can't rule out the Lakers going after Kevin Durant.
Oh, God.
You can't. They've got Austin Reeves. They got Dalton Connect, and they still got all their picks now.
Interesting. And I mean, that fits your window, so to speak. If LeBron's still at this level, it's like, hey, we're going for it now, and we have Luka. Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. I'm sure fans will love that if that happens. Well, let's hear from you out there in the stream team, podcast listeners. Your best Kevin Durant trade destinations, maybe some teams that we've overlooked that you could see in play. And I guess a part of this too. I think Shams in his reporting said like the idea that they'll want to try and get him to a potential contender. Right, Kevin Durant, I think.
Well, that's a Jimmy Butler situation, right, where it's like he's going to want an extension for a team, and he's not signing an extension with the Chicago Bulls, for instance, Sure. He wants to try and win another title.
To go to a team that has a chance to obviously compete. Yeah, that's a good point.
And it gets them the most back. Quite often. That's the team that's going to want to try and win a championship with Kevin Durant is going to give up the most. So, yeah, it's good for every side.